Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We hope you're keeping very safe and well out there. If you're listening to the show for the very first time, you can find us on iTunes, we're on Spotify, we're on Audio Boom, we're across a range of different audio platforms. We're across social media, we're on Twitter at Last Word on Spurs, we're on Facebook and Instagram too. And we are also live on YouTube, providing you with instant reaction to Tottenham Hotspur winning at Wolves. I say it was a tough, fought-out win, and I'm pleased to have my co-host firstly alongside me, the wonderful Lee McQueen is back on the show. Lee, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, Rick. Good. Hello, everybody. Viewers now, I have to say, don't I? Still getting used to this. Viewers and listeners, of course, if you're listening on the podcast version. But yeah, it was as Jace always loves to say. I know it's one of Jason's key things. It's a tough place to go, Molyneux. Tough place to go, but it was tough today, and I find myself saying, Rick and the team, we've got the job done. And what scares me is we said that quite a lot at the beginning of last season under Jose Mourinho. Hopefully that won't be the case. So after last week's performance, I thought we were outstanding. A little bit different. I'm sure we're going to get into it tonight. But, nonetheless, 3 points. We're in the top four. Long may it continue.
Yeah, totally agree. Listen, I totally agree with that. And everyone will have different views about the way that performance was in terms of the style of football. But that's why we've got great guests coming on the show. And we're absolutely delighted to return back two of our favourite guests. First up, wonderful Talia Corrins back on the Last Word on Spurs. Big opinions, big voice. Talia, how are you?
I'm really good, thank you. I'm very happy to be back. I think you all knew that I was quite annoyed at the end of last season where I was like, I need a rant. Like, I just needed it to happen. And I didn't have the platform for it. So we're back. But I won't be ranting that much today. I think I'll be neutral-ish.
Calm. Isn't it weird? We're calm already as Spurs fans. 3 games in. What's Nuno doing to us? I tell you, only 3 games in. Also delighted to have back. Always love his opinions. Always full of great, insightful stuff. The wonderful Harry Brooks back on the Last Word on Spurs. Harry, how are you?
Very well, thanks, mate. Thanks for the invite. Apologies for the hat. I've got an awful bonnet now. And you told me about half an hour ago we were going to be viewed, so I thought I've got to stick this on rather than show everyone my awful bonnet. So apologies for that. But no, thanks for having me back on, mate.
Listen, weird and wonderful haircuts on the Last Word on Spurs.
I'm going for that Greenish.
Yeah.
That's why you get a knockoff version when you don't pay the hula hoops and the 100 million. Is that what you get, Lee? This is the version you get.
Yeah, or the Onoma, 5 million Onoma.
5 billion and Onoma.
Can I just say, personally, I wouldn't change this version for the world. I wouldn't want Jack. I'd want this one anyway. So I'm more than happy. So that's absolutely brilliant. But guys, should we get straight into it? Because Spurs, some will see it as a very good win, as we do hold on at Wolves, at Molyneux, with the host putting us under severe pressure for a lot of that game. Nice moment for Nuno in terms of going back there. The home fans tuning him at full time. Big win for Tottenham. I've got to start with you, Lee. Listen, it's 2 wins from 2 in the Premier League. Obviously, cut the goals, obviously, in each of the games. Haven't yet conceded. What are you making of this newfound Tottenham under Nuno Espirito Santo so far?
Well, I think I said in the intro as well, I think that last week was fantastic, to get a win at home in front of 60,000. Yeah, everyone was up for it. The atmosphere was amazing. The fight, the determination was there. And obviously to beat the champions, brilliant. I think it was always going to be a tough game today on the basis that they've got the home fans for the first time in best part of 2 years. I think Jace and you and the boys said this on the midweek pod. And it proved to be that way. But I've got to be honest with you, I'm a little bit disappointed the way that we approached the game. I thought we were 15, 20 yards too deep throughout the entire football match. And I felt that we were running scared from Adama Traore most of the game. And I'm sure a lot of people will say, he caused us lots of problems. But actually, in one of the most decent crosses that he put in, I think it went for a throw-in. So there wasn't really much, what's the word I'm looking for, I suppose, issue with him other than the fact that we were panicking in defence. We just kept getting pushed back. So if I'm honest, obviously I'm delighted that we got the 3 points. Some might say, as you said before, Rick, that we ground out a win and we get the 3 points. I was a little bit disappointed the way we played today. I thought it was some strange calls from Nuno to bring Harry Kane on. Absolutely brilliant. Loved it. Loved the reception he got. All the fans really, really getting behind him, showcasing to him that we want him to stay and he's one of our own, regardless of what happened. And I'm sure we'll get into that later. But to take Son off for Kane, I thought was a very, very strange substitution. So, considering but between them last year, it was like 14 goals and assists or whatever it was, a Premier League record. And then the guy's coming on and Son gets taken off. But it felt to me watching the game, and obviously I'm still in Spain at the moment, so I wasn't watching the game live at Molineux or anything like that. But watching the game on the telly, it felt to me that we were under the cosh, if I'm honest. And they had a lot of possession. I've got the blue book out at the moment. I can't read it because my dog Marley's actually sitting on the blue book. Right? It's really bizarre. But I think we had in the end maybe 300 odd passes, and they had 450 passes. They passed the ball well. It felt like they were the ones on the front foot rather than Tottenham. Having said that, like I said, and a couple of people said on the comments already, we ground the result out. So look, we got the 3 points. We got the job done. I'm not sure I quite like that. I wanted us to see us more on the front foot, if I'm honest. But we got the points, Rick. So what do we do?
Yeah, totally agree. Listen, we're going to come on to the style of it and what people make of it. But let's come round to you, Harry, because Spurs, to be fair to them, they saw out the storm. They took another 3 points. I mean, for me, looking at it, I thought it was a real committed team performance where, they dug deep, put their bodies on the line on several occasions during the game. I've got to be honest, it wasn't pretty. I think it's fair to say it wasn't really pretty to watch. But in the end, we do hold on to make it back-to-back wins in the Premier League under Nuno Espirito Santo. What's your thoughts, Harry, on the overall game?
You can't deny that they were dogged and they worked hard and they ground it out. But I was very concerned with sort of the ideas or maybe lack of ideas in possession. I thought that, there was a real lack of fluidity in build up and on the ball. And I thought there was too rigid and, that there was a lack of compactness and there was no real connections on the ball. There was no real consistent passing pattern or pattern of play. There was no fluidity in and I just thought that it led to quite basic play where there wasn't any real consistent way where we were able to get at Wolves. There wasn't really any direct counter attacks either. And I just thought there was a bit of nothing on the ball, to be honest. And that is a bit of a shame. But then again, the profile of players wasn't really there. I mean, the midfield trio of like COYS, Skipp and Dele Alli, all individually fantastic players, but it's so unbalanced. There's no one in that midfield trio that is a high volume passer, no one that's a great ball carrier, no one that passes long, no one that has a real powerhouse engine. So they were quite stuck in their shape. And then when you have players that don't really excel at progressing the ball anyway, you're going to really, really struggle. And Spurs' inability to get any kind of rhythm on the ball against a team like Wolves with Adama Traore, I mean, that's an absolute nightmare because there was no real ability to sustain pressure or retain the ball. I thought the spacing between the players was all off. Anytime a player received the ball, it was like they were literally stood. Obviously when you see beforehand on Sky or whatever, then they put the lineups out there and you have the right back, the centre back, whatever it might be. To me, it looked like the players were literally stuck in those positions. So anytime when they got the ball, all Wolves had to do was like cut off a lane or a passing lane, and there was no options on the ball. The annoying thing is, I think there's players in the squad that fix that, like Ndombele. And I thought that the only time that Spurs looked decent was when Harry Kane came on, because now there was someone that, provided a bit more rhythm on the ball, few more passing connections. So I'm not worried about it. It's been a great start. Credit to Nuno. And I think that it will change with, the profile of player. But that lineup we've seen, in the first two games, I don't think that that's a lineup that can last the season, especially at midfield. So early days, great start. Credit to them all, but certainly things to work on, I would say.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Listen, and that's a game of opinion is what we always want. Talia, let's come round to you. I think the phrase probably is job done, right? I mean, it was like a job done kind of game because with all the speculation and the incessant media coverage surrounding Kane, I think the manager's done very well to kind of keep this main core group of players really focused on the job in hand. It's 2 league wins from 2. It's 2 clean sheets as well, which is obviously a very healthy return. I mean, overall, are you quite pleased now on the back of that?
I think so. Look, I think none of us watched that and was like, this is incredible. This is an amazing watch and everything we want and more. That's not what we saw today. But we all were hoping for a season that, changed the mentality that we all hoped for last year, that we didn't see, that we'd play better football, we'd play to our strengths, all of that kind of stuff. And, like you said, we've had terrible media coverage, everything that's been going on with the club. We've won 2 in 2. We've got 2 clean sheets, scoring goals, not conceding goals, 2 arguably very hard fixtures as well. Obviously, City, there's no good time to play them, but you take that. We won. We were phenomenal. Being there was phenomenal. All of it was. Going to Molineux is not an easy game either. I think, we've drawn there many a times when we've deserved to win or lose. I think today was probably no different. We expected a hard game, especially Nuno going back. First away game, it's not an easy place to go. I think in the first half, we were quite poor all round, like you guys have already covered anyway. I think I've said it so many times, but we've just not replaced Eriksen. We've got no creativity, and that shows with games like today, because you need someone to make that move and just push you forward, because they were there for the taking at so many points. Likewise, so are we. Maybe that, you've got to stay balanced, but they weren't incredible. We weren't terrible, and vice versa. But if we had that player, we'd be able to break easier. We'd be able to do this and that. We would have won 3, whatever, maybe 4. But today it could have been 3-1 the other way, or it could have been 2-2 or 1-1. You don't know. And it's just that little stuff that I think we really need to work on. But I don't think we should go in some mad spiral of chaos. I think it was always going to start the same 11. They deserve to start as well. And like you said, once Kane came on, it was a different game, wasn't it? He brings so much quality, and I'm sure we will cover it, but we just need players like him, and hopefully another 1 or 2 to just...
Or 3 or 4. We're not greedy too much, but I totally agree. I totally agree with Tanya that for me, we are missing that lock picker. We're missing someone that kind of picks that lock, unlocks the door. And Ndombele may have been that player, but the problem with Ndombele is that I think everyone will agree that in any aspect in life, whilst you might have talent, without the hard work, it's just not going to work, is it, with Ndombele? And that's the hard thing. You can see the talent is there. Wonderful, wonderful player. I've got absolutely no doubt that maybe he'll go elsewhere and be phenomenal. But if his attitude isn't right, it just isn't going to work at Tottenham, unfortunately. We can't afford to carry players. But we will come on to that maybe later in the show. Let's go back around to you, Lee, because I think one of the things that are kind of coming through is that, some people find it extraordinary for Spurs. The fact that, we're our most expensive player wants to leave the football club. And we've got our best player, having played the champions, we've got 6 out of 6 wanting out. I think there's some decent character there. I think we have to not, allow, the football in a way to override what's been a real positive start for Nuno in terms of a character building process. He only recently has got the job, if you put it politely like that, because I say he's had to work with an integral core of players. And for me, I've got to say that so far, over the course of 2 games, I ignore the one midweek, that I can see a plan coming together here, and that's very early. Can you, Lee, already, a man that always believes in a vision? Can you believe there's a vision? Can you see a vision coming through?
The A-team, Rick. The A-team. We're going for it. Look, I love it when a plan comes together, Rick. Absolutely love it. And I do see there's a plan coming together. The way that he's galvanized. I take your point. Look, I'm not being negativity. Derek says on the comments as well, too negative. No, I'm just pointing out some key facts. The reality of the situation is, I think all of us would have snapped your arm off for 6 points out of the first 2 games in the Premier League. I don't think anyone expected that, and I think that's why we're in a really good position. I just think that, today it could have eased, and look, it didn't. So there's no point talking about it because we won 1-0, but it easily could have been something different if Traore could shoot and score and whatever. Look, I'll pay tribute to Hugo Lloris. 300 appearances, I'm sure we'll come on to it today. Record for the club, absolute legend, and then a wonderful one-on-one save today as well. So look, we rode our luck at times, but like you say, we wasn't under the cosh the whole game. Like, I don't think that we were getting battered the whole game, but it felt a little bit uneasy. It felt like it was a little bit uneasy. I would have rather we scored within the 9th minute, and I'd rather have gone on the front foot and gone again. It just didn't feel like that we did that. But look, in terms of the jobs Nuno's doing, and I think I put a tweet out this morning or yesterday about, everything that's been going on in the football club over the last kind of, 72 days or 78 days or whatever it was until we got a manager, Nuno being let's be honest about it, 6th or 7th choice, whatever it was, not making signings, Harry Kane rumblings, it's still going on. What is it, Rick? You're the transfer man. Was it two weeks left before the transfer window finishes?
Well, I think we're 10 days, 10 days
left. Yeah. And our star man still doesn't know if he's coming or going. Utterly ridiculous. And Nuno's coming to all of that and actually got 2 wins out of 2. Clean sheets, as Talia said, it's look, it is fantastic, and it is brilliant to look at that. I think that what worries me is if we go into the next game against Watford at home in the Premier League, I'm talking about, not Paços de Ferreira, but in the next Premier League, and we're kind of sitting back again and on the back foot and so on and so forth. We need to be a lot more on the front foot. I'm not sure I can stomach another 36 games the way we play today, sitting back and getting torn a new one a little bit by a guy that can't shoot or score, and ultimately by a team that finishes 10th in the Premier League.
Yeah. What I would again say is, for me, I'm going to urge on the side of caution because it is very, very early days. For me, I'm more looking at the case of the character being shown over these last couple of games. Because what I would say for me is that Spurs probably, I don't think we would have won that game last season. I don't. In fact, obviously we didn't win that game last season. But for me, in that
we didn't win last season. We didn't win that game.
We didn't, but in essence, that for me in itself is progress, right? The fact that we have ground that win out. I mean, you look at it. I thought Dele, played ever so well. I mean, Dyer, apart from getting tackled on the halfway line, was quite strong. Even though Dyer, we know he's got a mistake in him. Bergwijn, probably some would say probably our best attacker on the day. I think it's undeniable that Spurs, as I think you said, Harry, in the opening. They were definitely a better team with Kane on the pitch. I don't think anybody can argue that when Harry Kane came on, it just added a different dimension to Tottenham. And there's absolutely no doubt about that.
Just quickly, there's a lot of comments in there. I didn't see the post-match interviews and stuff, but apparently Son would come off with a knock. He had an injury.
Walking injury, Nuno
he put in the warm-up, I think. He was taped up in the warm-up, so I think it was a little bit iffy, but he was all right, and he obviously just needed to come off, I guess.
Yeah. Guys, we're just going to go to our listener questions, and I think we're going to have 30 to 40 questions coming on the back of the show, so I'm just going to read some of these out. The first one is from We Don't Need Another Hero. We've got the Iron Dome, who says, 2 good results in the league, but still some obvious weaknesses in the squad. With the transfer window closing fast, we still need a lot of work to be done for Paratici and a midfielder who can pass and a striker to look to be big in those moments. I think we all agree with that. Johnny Stevens says, with Tsungi being sold, we have to buy some midfielders. Our most creative pass today was Hugo. Obviously, he means that tongue in cheek. Extremely lucky to win today with the same players who were not good enough last season, providing they still are not. A win is a win, but it was so painful to watch. Matt Martin says, don't want to put down on a great result, but surely if anyone knows Wolves, it's Nuno. So why were we so poor and had no real plan against Adama Traore? It was identical to Jose Spurs last year, except we held on. Very worrying performance, to be honest. We need signings. I've got to be honest, Matt. I don't see it as being a very worrying performance. I said, for me, I think I agree with you, Lee, that if we're going to see that for the next 36 games, it's a massive concern. But we're 2 games into a season. And the guy hasn't got all the players that he needs yet. He's got his best striker, arguably one of the club's greatest ever strikers that wants to leave. He's got his most expensive player, club record signing that wants to go. I think he's having to juggle a lot behind the scenes at the moment. And I think he's handled himself exemplary so far in terms of press conferences. That Tottenham feed says, are you pleased with 2 very different performances in the first 2 games? Or is there still lots of work despite the 6 points and 2 clean sheets? I think we all agree there is lots of work to be done. And we'll come to you, Harry, for the next question. This is from Robert Sigvardsson, who says, where did our pressing intensity go? The defence dealt well with the pressure, though, but it shouldn't really have needed to against that Wolves side. Do you agree?
Yeah, it's difficult because you have to adapt to every team you play. Now, City are a team that obviously look to dominate the ball and they circulate the ball a bit slower and look to play out in certain ways. So Spurs will have really planned that and really honed in to stop them from progressing the ball in the way they want to and building up the kind of momentum that they try to get. Whereas Wolves, they look to get into the attackers a bit more early, a little bit more direct. They're very good in transitions, Jimenez and Adama Traore. So it was harder to aggressively press them in the same way. And again, it's Spurs' inability to have sort of any rhythm on the ball makes it harder defensively as well, because you've got constant onslaughts of attack that's hitting you really, really quickly, So I think it was just a case of, that's the profile of team you're up against today, Wolves, that, look to hit early. It's harder to press those teams high and aggressively when you do. The defence as a unit, I thought dealt with the situations on the whole really, really well. Adama Traore, he's impossible at times to defend. He's just so powerful and direct in terms of how he goes past players. But he's obviously his decision making and his final product isn't always the best. So Spurs could say they were a bit lucky, but overall the defence coped just fine. But in terms of the pressing, it's not something to worry about too much. One thing I will say about Nuno is that I I think he's an outstanding coach. He's a coach that can adapt to whatever group of players he has. He's a coach that I think can adapt to certain opposition. So I think that you can expect to see perhaps more of an overriding emphasis on attack, perhaps more so than under Jose, but in terms of like dominance in attack. But I still think you'll see quite a lot of different styles and shapes according to the opposition. I didn't like how they played against Wolves today. I wasn't a massive fan of it, but I will say, to be honest, as Lee said and as you said, he's had a very hard start in terms of what he's had to deal with off the pitch, and also I don't think that will be the profile of players that is starting for the team in a month's time. I mean, the striker situation will be resolved because it has to be resolved. So it'll either be Harry Kane or someone else. I don't think that will be the midfield trio. Again, they're all really good players in their own right, but as a trio, I don't think they work. So it needs time to work on your ideas, but also the profile of players will change. So nothing to worry about in terms of the pressing or the shape. There's good ideas so far. There's clearly things that have been worked on, but early stages.
Yeah, I mean, I do think, Tally, people watching this, and we've seen some of the comments here, that for some they do feel that maybe swashbuckling, that can wait for another week. It can wait for another couple of months if need be, because it is about, being dogged, showing those solid performances away from home, that inevitably build the team culture and creates an environment where everybody feels they're fighting for something. And I think that's one thing that Spurs fans, we can say that over the last 18 months or so, we haven't really seen that fight, everyone coming together, that real desire to succeed as a group. I mean, I think, again, today you look at it, Tanganga for me, whilst Traore did give him the runaround at times, I thought physically he was superb. Skipp, again, showing some excellent discipline. And we have to remember, Oliver Skipp, this is a guy that's playing the Championship last season, having to make a massive step up. And I'm not sitting here saying he's going to be the next Iniesta. But what I am saying is that you've got to give this guy time, because he's coming into a Premier League where we know it's one of the most toughest leagues, one of the most unforgiving leagues in the world. I think Reguilon is showing now again that there's that engine there. Pierre, as always, I think Højbjerg, that engine that he's got, I'm really, really impressed. And I think overall, when you look at, again, what we've had to put up with in the last month or so with Spurs' transfer saga, which we know we're not massively, happy about what's been done so far. We're hoping there's going to be a big grand finale to come, which will probably hopefully end in confetti in a good way. But, generally, there's still a lot of work to be done. And, we'll discuss quickly, if we can, guys, the starting 11, because as you guys know, you're all big on social media and Twitter, and you know what that's like. It's a platform where inevitably whatever team goes out, whatever team comes out, at, whether it's 3:00 on a Sunday, Saturday, or 1:30 or whatever time it is, it's going to cause a meltdown, right? No matter if there's 8 players that you want in the team and there's 2 that are missing, it always causes controversy. Now, we saw coming over to you, Lee, that Harry Kane returned to the Spurs bench for this game. It meant that the England captain, who had been left out of the first 2 matchday squads, was back involved. And to some, in a way, that felt almost a relief to see Kane there, a reassurance that maybe this is going to be resolved. Obviously, we saw him keep the same 11 identical to Manchester City. That meant Davinson Sanchez and Eric Dyer continued in the partnership of the centre of Spurs' defence. It meant also Tungi and Ndombele, Muta Sissoko and Serge Aurier did not travel with the squad, because as we understand, they are looking to secure moves elsewhere. Inevitably, actually, interesting, I found that also a Harry Kane stat. He's not come on as a sub in the Premier League since December 2018, away at Leicester, and not scored in the league such against away at Villa in November 2014. I think, remember, that date was very special. It could have been the day that Poch may have lost his job. Quite crazy. But Lee, team news when that came in, any real surprises for you that Nuno stayed with the same 11 as last week?
No, I think it was the right thing to do as well. We were brilliant last week. I think everyone would share that. And actually, friend of the show, David Ellis, as well, is tweeted saying, "Have we seen a centre back pairing for the 2 games on the trot as strong or as good as what we've seen in the first 2 Premier League games, which is Dyer and Sanchez?" And you probably wouldn't have been saying that 3-4 weeks ago. I think everyone was filled with dread. So it's a fair shout. Ian Ferguson on the comments as well was coming up and saying about Nuno ball and loving a bit of Nuno and the way that we're going as well. So look, I think the starting lineup is what Nuno picked was the right one to begin with. He's kind of stayed quite loyal, I suppose, for want of a better expression, through the pre-season with the team that he's been picking. That front 4 done really, really well last week, and obviously through pre-season as well. So there wasn't any surprises in there at all. I just felt that the way we set up, I don't personally think that I thought Dele Alli had another really good game. I thought he's working really, really hard. You know, he's looked ripped to shreds, by the way, in some of his photos pre-season and stuff. He's obviously worked really, really hard, and he's worked really hard the last 2 games in the Premier League. But I don't think it's his best position to get the best out of a Dele. Although he scored one obviously today, could have had another one. It just went behind him, didn't he? That cross, and actually could have been kind of walking away actually with a match ball at some stage. So I think that there is time to come together with his team. But having Harry on the bench, seeing Harry get off the coach, having Harry on the bench, seeing hearing the reception that he got when he came on. He's one of our own team. He's one of our own. No matter what goes on, he's one of our own. And I'm absolutely convinced that he signed a contract. I mentioned about it, a couple of weeks ago. I broke the news from being in the know, and I'm not in the know, but I know this particular situation pretty well. And I knew that there was a contract on offer for him. And I don't think he's on that bus or on that coach. Not the Jose Mourinho bus, by the way, the one that kept getting parked last season. I don't think he's on the coach and then on the bench and then playing if he ain't going to start football club. That's what I think. I know what's been going on in the background, and I think that he might well have put pen to paper on an extension of his deal. Whether or not it's just for 1 year with a big clause, but I think that's the right thing. And I think bringing him on the bench, putting him on the bench today, and then bringing him on was the right thing to do. So I was happy with the lineup, Rick.
Yeah. Talia, we're going to discuss the opening goal. And we didn't have to wait long for it, to be honest. A penalty to Spurs. It was a really nice play, actually. Reguilon playing the ball into Dele, touched the ball around Jose Sarr after colliding with the keeper, hit the deck, tucked away the penalty, sending the keeper the wrong way. Do you think Dele, did he initiate the contact there for you, Talia? Or do you think the keeper there, once he commits like that, it's very interesting because it's taking my Spurs hat off for a second, I thought, would we be angry? Would we be angry if that went against us? What's your thoughts? I mean, I couldn't care less. It's in the back of the net. It's 1-0 Spurs. I'm celebrating. But your thoughts on the opening goal?
If that was Mo Salah or Bruno Fernandes, we'd have been like, you cheating motherfucker. That is what we would have said.
Yeah, you reckon?
I think he was very clever. Because, look, there was contact. It was a pen. And you can't deny that. But I think Dele was clever. He knew what he was doing. It's a very Dele thing to do as well. He kind of went into him a little bit and accidentally went, whoops. So he fell down. But it was a pen. It was clever play. And I think if it's against you, you're fuming. If it's for you, you're like, that was clever. It's one of them. You can't really fight either way. But it's a pen, and do you know what? I was happy he took it. He needed a goal. He really did. And I think getting that just means he's on the right track. You've all said it. He looks good. He looks happy. He was doing his live stream on the bus on the way home, having his banter with the old players and new players. And there is this togetherness that's trying to be built. And I think, we all loved that about the squad, 4 or 5 years ago. And that was what carried us with the fans and everyone. We were this big kind of unit. And the last 2 seasons, we haven't had that. It's been toxic in the club, out the club, fans everywhere. And I think Nuno's obviously trying to get that back. And I think it's shown already that is there. And I think they really respect him, and he knows who wants to fight for him or who doesn't. And that helps. And I think Dele's stepping up. He knows it's his time. He's got to do what he's got to do. He wants to be playing for England and etc. And he put the goal away, and I'm sure there's more to come.
Yeah, I find David's comment there. I think he agrees with you, Talia, that your dive there was actually more convincing than Dele's. Might have to go to VAR for that one, I reckon. Let's come around to you, Harry, because you know what? It's funny. Dele, he didn't have a single touch in City's box last weekend, but really did impress in terms of the kind of harrying, the pressing. And I think that run was a flash of the Dele that we're more used to today. I generally believe that kind of run from Dele is that kind of old Dele that we knew. It was a run that was timed for me so perfectly. And, okay, listen, you make of what you want with that penalty. You could have had a second actually before half-time as well. Had Bergwijn finding with that square ball. But he made a great sliding block in his own box as an Trianco. And he worked incredibly hard, I think, again, from start to finish. I think we're definitely seeing a new Dele Alli. Definitely we're seeing a second coming. That's my personal opinion. I think he knows that in terms of his time at Tottenham, it could be coming towards an end. And he knows it's got to be a time now where he steps up. For you, Harry, tell me, do you think there's still a chance that there's a Dele that we see in a Tottenham shirt that's going to be the one we know of old? Or do you think there's still a lot of work to do before we get to that point?
If I'm being honest, I think there's a lot of work that has to be done still. He's clearly done lots of good work in terms of, in pre-season. I would definitely do other work as well. One thing that he's definitely better at this so far this season is how quick he is into the tackle, which is really good. He still has, for me, massive flaws in possession and on the ball. He's a very odd player in terms of his style. Which means I think to get the best out of him, he has to be used quite specifically. I don't think you will see the best of him being used in this sort of midfield trio, box to box. I don't think he's that kind of player. I just don't. I know he's done well against Man City, but even today, I must have counted. I mean, I might be completely way out of touch here, but it felt like in the last 20 minutes, he must have given the ball away cheaply in possession a good 5-6 times. I mean, that can't happen. If you look at Dele Alli now, would you say that it's any different from the Dele Alli we saw when he first came onto the scene at Spurs, and obviously before MK Dons? He hasn't really adapted his game. He hasn't, he still doesn't use his left foot. He's still quite awkward ball striking. He's very loose on the ball, which every now and again you can see that creative magic, which will come off the cuff. But Dele Alli's best at when he's timing those runs into danger areas and using his creative sort of flair to make things happen in and around the box. But listen, Nuno clearly sees him as someone that can be that in that midfield three, box to box, and he has shown some really good things there. Like I said about the tackling, I thought he was outstanding. Or maybe not outstanding. I thought he was very good in the second half versus Man City last week. But I still think there has to be. I think Dele has to do a lot of work on the outside to work on some things to really help elevate and get himself back to the recognised potential superstar or whatever people might look at him as.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, interesting today was quite incredible. Generally, given that he's been fit and available, that's with Dele Alli's first Premier League goal since March 2020. I find that incredible for a guy that, coming around to you, Lee, that has been, his record when he first started. I mean, listen, we know that stat's been in front of there so many times. We know before goals at 21 with Gerrard, Beckham, Lampard. We know it's been there. After the game, we saw Nuno say that Dele's working very hard. I think the team is working very hard. We still have a long way to go, and we're working very hard to improve the relationship between the players and being versatile enough. But Dele did a very good job and he's working hard. I mean, clearly, Lee, for what anyone thinks of, of Dele in the past, he's clearly impressing Nuno, because you can't imagine. I think one thing we know about Nuno so far is he doesn't suffer any falls because he's not playing in Ndombele. He hasn't played Kane straight away. He's made him wait. And, I just think he's not going to put players in the team that he feels aren't going to be giving their 100%. So Nuno's clearly seeing something in him he likes. I know you've always championed Dele Alli. Do you think, Lee, he can get back to that level that, you always believed he could have done?
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, Dodge Spur, yes, it is an Alice band. I'm going for Jack Grealish. Thanks for the comments. Yeah, absolutely. 173 appearances, 51 goals in the Premier League and 34 assists. This kid, and he's still young, this guy is on fire. And actually, you pull the stat out, say he ain't scored a Premier League goal since 2020. Well, of course he didn't. He didn't play any games under Jose. He was frozen out under Jose Mourinho. So I think that when Jose first come in his first half a season, when Poch left and Jose come in, he kept talking about, are you Dele or are you his brother? And then he come on, he scored an outrageous goal against Manchester United. He started to lead the line. We had no striker at that period of time. He was asked to do a different job. He's being asked to do a different job again, as Harry just mentioned before about 4-3. I don't think this is his perfect position for Dele Alli. I think the perfect position for Dele Alli, if you want to get the Dele from when he first joined the football club, is right in tucked behind Kane, almost like a second striker. That's where he was so effective. The telepathy that Son and Kane have got now, Dele and Kane used to have. I mean, the two were ridiculous, scored loads of goals in that season. I think it's an attitude thing as well before Jose got there. I think when you look back on Dele Alli's career, and hopefully it'll be a fruitful one at Tottenham as well, but when you look back on Dele's career, a turning point in his career will be Jose Mourinho. And I bet you, and we'll never know this for, fast forward 5 years, let's not get too ahead of ourselves, but I bet you in 5 years' time, Dele's citing Jose Mourinho as the guy that changed his career. And it'd be the same for Ndombele as well. Just as Luke Shaw and Jose Mourinho, they don't see eye to eye and whatever, but Luke Shaw become a fantastic left back again, maybe because of jip, if you like, or the some would say bullying, but the treatment of Jose Mourinho. But I bet Dele will look at that. There's no doubt. Harry, you've all said it. He's bucked his ideas up and he needed to. And there's only one person that can change that. There's only one person, and that's Dele. So over to Dele. And he's doing, so praise where praise be, he's done the business. And that's not from the handmaid's tale, by the way.
No, totally agree. JM Spurs on the screen says, I worry these 2 wins will paper over the cracks. We need another central midfielder, creative midfielder and centre-back. We know what Levy is like. I think what I would say to that is that I think anybody going into these last 9 days of a transfer window, I think we are fully aware that if the squad was to be what it is today, I think that's asking too much of any manager. To be honest, even Guardiola, even Klopp. There's a need, and we've said this for a long, long time. There's a need to really improve the squad.
Sorry to interrupt. Look, there is a need to improve the squad. There is a need to do all them things, and I'm not sticking up for not improving the squad. But you've got to put this into perspective. We were 5 points off the top 4 last year, having an absolute shocker. I mean, everyone would say that we had one of the worst seasons ever, and we were only 5 points. That 5 points, by the way, was dropped at Newcastle away and Newcastle at home and West Ham when we're 3-0 up. And then you're done. You've got to put it into perspective. Right? I'm not saying that we don't need any more signings. Please, viewers and listeners, I'm not saying that. We do need to strengthen. But credit where credit's due, as some of the viewers have already said as well, the players are different. They are working harder. They look fitter. They look stronger. They look at it more. And I think Harry made the point, wasn't as good today as it was last week. And I agree with that kind of high intensity pressing, Harry, that you mentioned earlier. And actually, we want to see more of that, because that's where I think we're going to get to. But today, as you said, Rick, earlier, we wouldn't have won that game under previous regime, because we didn't. And actually, we were dropping off 8, 9, 10 minutes before the end. And now we're not. So I do agree with you that we need all these signs, but sometimes, as Ndombele is absolutely proven to everyone right now, just because you go and spend 65 million on a player, don't mean to say he's the saviour, because clearly he hasn't done hardly anything worth noting in a Tottenham Hotspur football shirt. Do you know what I mean?
That's fair. Listen, that's fair. I mean,
not just about that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Listen, guys, we're going to go for a very short break. When we return, we'll be discussing more in terms of the game itself, player ratings. So, like I say, taking you into this break, we're going to hear from Nuno Espirito Santo. We're also going to hear from Hugo Lloris giving his thoughts on becoming Tottenham Hotspur's club record appearance holder. And we have to talk about Hugo Lloris after this break. He's been superb again, and we'll come on to it after this break. But that's for our listeners that are on audio. For ours that are on YouTube and you're listening live, I say we're going to be cracking on right now, so we can get straight into that. Before we discuss Hugo Lloris, I do want to discuss, coming around to you, Harry, the other penalty. I say it wasn't really a decision, but could have been a penalty decision. It definitely caused some controversy, because we saw Oliver Skipp, Nelson Semedo go shoulder to shoulder, and literally my reaction was like that. I was thinking, oh my God. I was thinking at the time, this is going to be nailed on. This can be nailed on after, like I say, we got that one given to us, which was, like Talia said, her BAFTA there, we saw a award-winning performance earlier. Look, more telling than Dele's attempt to win that penalty. At the time, we saw the home fans screaming for the penalty. After a quick check, Stuart Atwell decided that there was no foul. Play went on. Was you surprised at all there, Harry? Could you have seen that one being given?
I think what we're going to see, I mean, first of all, I hate VAR. I hate it. I hate everything about it. But I think, no, I'm not surprised, because I think that, I think we're going to see VAR, thankfully, used a lot less this season. So I think that, generally speaking, the on-field decision will stay. I wasn't surprised, but yeah, that's it's one of those where refs are so unpredictable because. And I understand how fans can get irritated, because, people always look at it as black and white, saying, well, if that's a foul, how could that one not be a foul? But there's never any situation that's ever completely the same. It was obviously risky, but you know what? They got the luck. So no, I wasn't really worried. I didn't think it was going to be overturned, to be honest. No.
I've got to sit here, Harry, for a second. I want to ask you, obviously you're a coach by trade, so I have to ask you about Oliver Skipp, coming through the ranks like he has done. Again today, I thought, overall, he did pick up a bizarre yellow card for what looked the perfect tackle at Traore. I mean, I was applauding that tackle. I thought it was an absolutely...
I have no idea.
Honestly, guys.
I think it was the arm. I think his legs were perfect. But I think he threw a bit of a
Yeah. But overall, I just think Skipp, it's only early days. It's only the second game back in the Premier League with Tottenham. But, he's come back, Harry. I just want to say he's fitted in like he's been there for a long, long time. I suppose the question I want to ask you is, when I look back at some of the academy players that we've had in the past come through, and one of them's getting a lot of stick right now in terms of Harry Winks. I go back and look at Ryan Mason, possibly, look Jamie O'Hara. Does anything at the moment with Skipp set him apart from those guys you've seen so far, where you can see something different, where he's actually going to grow, evolve into becoming a real top class midfielder? Can you see that, or is it just too early for you to make that call at the moment?
I can do. I guess the most relevant one to compare him to would be Harry Winks, and I do think he's a better footballer than Harry Winks. He's far more all-rounded. I think Winks has not been unlucky, but I think he's kind of like been siphoned into just kind of like a pass and move player at angles and nothing more. Whereas when he actually was coming through at Tottenham in terms of as an academy player and then into the first team, he was someone that was a bit more dynamic in terms of his passing. And as an academy player, you'd look to break into the box and provide more dynamism. But he just kind of like over the last few years just been turned into that, 5-yard, 10-yard pass player and not much more than that. In terms of Skipp, I think he's just more all-rounded. He offers more dynamism, a bit on the ball. And he's better defensively in terms of how he's able to get around the pitch and harry and press and be an absolute nuisance. There's a great video of when Skipp played for England under-21s versus Holland, I think, and there's a clip of the Holland players in the change room at half time saying what a nuisance he is, and he is. One thing that Skipp has always been, and I remember from watching him as an under 15 and under 16 at Spurs Academy games. I sound like your dad when I'm saying this, but he's a proper player. He's a proper footballer. It's correct. It's proper. The passing technique is correct. And I think that what we've seen in the first two games, I think that it's been a bit overstated. He hasn't been as good as I think people are saying. But what I was really happy with, in particular with the Man City game, is that I felt that maybe he was not overawed, but the first bit against Man City, it was him getting used to the level and being a bit maybe taken aback by the level. And then what I was really happy with was during the second half, you really saw him, actually feel at home more. And I think he's a very, very good footballer. But I think to see the best out of Skipp, he has to play in a team and a midfield that, I've said it, keep saying it, that has more balance. But I think Skipp will go on and have a really good Tottenham career. I really do believe that. I think he's an excellent footballer, fantastic attitude, proper footballer. The exact kind of players you want in and around your squad, the exact kind of players. So no, I'm definitely on the Skipp boat, definitely.
Okay. Talia, let's come over to you, and feel free to bring Skipp into this conversation. But we do want to discuss, and I know Lee wants to give it a massive mention as well. Of course, Hugo Lloris, because he had a big moment during that game where Dyer somehow lost the ball. I think in a position where Dyer, it was under no pressure at all whatsoever. And for me again, in terms of Hugo Lloris in general, I know we're not surprised by Eric Dyer, but I do think Lloris there, as always, he had nothing too serious to do. He had nothing too serious to do until he was rushed into making that save. But again, that's the sign of a top goalkeeper, where he's making his 300th Premier League appearance, club record now appearance holder, and he makes a save like that. And I think Kieran puts it great on the screen here. Does Hugo get the credit he deserves for Spurs? For me, he saved us so many times in important games. He's been so loyal to Spurs legend. I just want to follow on from that, Talia, because what I found incredible this summer is that he's coming back to Tottenham. We've signed another goalkeeper. He's got 12 months left on his contract. He could quite easily, for me, start to be jumping up and down saying, my future's uncertain. I don't know what's going on about my future. He gave an interview today to Spurs TV, and I thought what he said was incredible. He said, my job is I'm focused on making sure that all the other players are focused on doing their jobs. And I thought, you know what, this guy, he's not won a single trophy at Tottenham. He's won the World Cup. For me, he should have been winning trophies, and I still hope he has a chance to do so at Tottenham. He's handled himself so well at Tottenham. He really, really has. And I'll be gutted for him if Spurs do not go on to win a trophy with him at the club. What do you think of Hugo Lloris's time here at Spurs? He's just been phenomenal, hasn't he?
He has. I think, look, Kieran does put it so well there as well. And I think he has the captain's armband for a reason. And I know as a fan base in general, people have debated that for a long time, whether he deserved to keep it or it should have been moved, etc. But I think comments like today show you exactly why he does wear it. And I think we've also seen him become a lot more vocal in recent years. I think we never used to kind of hear what he does to kind of dictate and put the players together. And I think recently, especially with COVID and everything was quiet, we got to hear quite a lot of what he said. And he's a huge character that really does kind of unite our team and give them the direction that they need, because he has been a servant. He's been incredible for us. And, you know, we don't have that, or we haven't necessarily had that maturity throughout our squad forever. We've had young players, academy players, or swap around, but he's always been a consistent. People have come and gone and he's stood at the back line. And, you know, he dictates a lot of that. And I think he doesn't get enough credit for doing that. And like Kieran said as well, he's saved us so many times that you're never going to get this keeper that is unbelievable, that can save every single pen that they get and has unbelievable distribution or doesn't punch the ball, blah, blah, blah. You know, we can sit here and fault him in certain situations, but overall, he's incredible. And I do think it does go under the radar. You know, people will praise Kane or people will praise Sonny or whoever when they have a good game, but often you don't necessarily think, do you know what? Hugo had an unreal game. Sometimes you do if he's not made particularly good saves. But I think a keeper's one of those positions that it is just you. You can't hold back on anyone else. Of course, you've got your defenders in front of you to try and, you know, take some of that pressure off. But ultimately, it's you in front of the goal. And if it goes behind you, you've conceded. And that is a lot to kind of handle. And I think we all know we've conceded a lot of goals in the last few years, or way more than we all would have liked to, just because
of course,
what happened. And I think he took the brunt of a lot of that as well, which necessarily isn't his fault. Of course, you can do things better, but I think he's been unbelievable. He's a great servant. Like you said, he deserves to win. He deserves to stand there with the captain and hold something for us, because he's given us a lot of years and we are extremely lucky to have him at the club. And I do think that people really should kind of acknowledge that a little bit more, because he's a special guy. I think he's a proper nice guy.
Totally agree. I mean, Lee, coming over to you, you know, it's funny, as supporters, we're very quick to want to jump on getting players out of the club when they're not good enough. But, you know, I don't think as fans, I say maybe not, listen, it's like anything what we are like as, you know, supporters. So some of us are glass half full, some are glass half empty. You know, I just think sometimes, you know, you have to stand back and you have to realise and appreciate just the service someone's given to your football club. You know, he's now become Tottenham's, you know, club record appearance holder. I mean, that's huge. You know, whatever you think, I think that's absolutely huge. And, you know, I think you have to take into account, really, you know, what that guy, in terms of Tottenham, you look at it and you think to yourself that this guy has, in a way, he's given some of his best years to Tottenham without winning the trophies. Therefore, I feel for him so much. I want him to win that one trophy with Tottenham, no matter what it be. Listen, I want it to be a Premier League, I want it to be a Champions League, I want it to be, you know, I want it to be a high-class trophy, but I just want him to win something here to recognise the hard work that he's put in and just himself. You know, I just think generally as a man, he's carried himself ever so well at Tottenham. Lee's just on mute. We're going to unmute Lee.
Classic. I do that all the time.
I've tried 4 years to shut him up. That never works.
I know. True story. Take a bow, fella. Take a bow. Look, well, it won't be the Europa Conference League that Hugo's winning this year. That's for sure. So don't get carried away, people. Look, I think he's been absolutely outstanding. When you look at the likes of David De Gea, for example, who literally was amazing or has been amazing for Manchester United, and now he's struggling to get in and out of the side and so on and so forth. You look at Thibaut Courtois, who went to Real Madrid from Chelsea, and then they bought Kepa, and Kepa was a bit of a disaster or whatever it might be. Now they've changed to, of course, to Mendy. Goalkeepers typically are, they are always nullified for making a mistake. If you make one mistake, it typically is a goal, right? So therefore, there was make 300 appearances for the football club over a 9-year stint is incredible. And there's loads of brilliant comments on here. So thanks everyone for getting interactive with us today. And he is a legend, 100% legend for me. And let's hope that he's capped off with one of the big trophies. But I think that he, a little bit like Jan Vertonghen, when Jan left the football club last year, you know, at some stage in your heart, Jan's coming back. You know he is. And I think it's the same with Hugo Lloris as well. Whatever happens after this year, you know that he'll be back at our football club at some stage. So Hugo, DMTV 985, spot on. Hugo is a legend.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we've got to get Harry's thoughts as well on Hugo. Harry, as Spurs fans, again, we are a fickle bunch. We are one of the most hardest bunch of supporters to keep happy. And even Hugo, throughout the years, we've seen so many comments we're saying, we could have upgraded on Hugo. I think overall, when you look at his overall time at Tottenham, I mean, he's definitely saved us more points than he's ever cost us, right? I think he's just been a superb goalkeeper. I think even with Galini, and we hope he's going to be the right man to replace him in time. But it's not going to be easy, is it? Hugo's been phenomenal for this football club.
Yeah, he's been fantastic. I mean, I remember when Spurs first signed him, I thought I just couldn't believe that transfer happened. He was one of the best goalkeepers in the world at that time, and then he was actually I think he was at his best for Tottenham when Spurs were at their worst. And then as Spurs seemed to get better, that's when he started to make a few more mistakes. But listen, I think Talia said it earlier. Spurs aren't going to sign the perfect goalkeeper. The perfect goalkeeper probably doesn't even really exist, just like the perfect player doesn't exist. And there are issues with his distribution. Although to be fair, he's pulled out some nice passes in the first 2 games this season, so I don't know where that's come from.
Yeah, he's definitely changed, didn't he, Harry?
Yeah, I don't know where that's come from. But yeah, so long may it continue. But listen, that there has been times when he's made high-profile errors in big games, and his distribution does let you down. But overall, he's been a huge positive for Tottenham in terms of what he gives on the pitch, off the pitch. As an ambassador as well. I think that it's I think Spurs will look back at Hugo Lloris's time at the club with great fondness when it ends, if it ends next season or 2 seasons or whatever. And I think he's built enough of a reputation now at the club where, in the same way that we saw with Michael Dawson a few weeks ago, he'll always have that invite back to be to continue to be a part of the club in some capacity, which is credit to the work you do at a club for that long. It's a professional footballer is it is one of the hardest things in the world to achieve. So to make it last at a major club like Tottenham for that long as a captain is absolute credit to a player as a person and for their ability. So he's been a legend at Tottenham, no question about it.
Spot on. I totally agree. And listen, he deserves that section. Listen, Hugo Love, we needed to have it in there. Talia, let's come back round to you. I mean, Heung-min Son in the warm-up, I know we already got massive concerns beforehand. The fact that he went down, it was literally minutes before actually the team were due to come out. But in the end, the medical staff patched him up. Didn't look entirely comfortable, I thought, during the game, Talia. There was times where he didn't look really freely when he was running. His involvement itself in like a shot cross blocked in the box early in the second half. Then he had 2 follow-ups from Bergwijn's effort being saved. And, walked gingerly onto the pitch at the final whistle. And Spurs were hoping it's nothing serious. But, after the game, Nuno was asked the question, how is he? And he said, I cannot answer that. For now, he's all right. In the warm-up, he had a strain for him, but he was okay to play. I don't know. Let's assess him. I didn't realise. I'm sorry. I mean, Nuno, keeping his heart very, very close to his chest. I mean, a lot of Hugo's in there, a lot of Nuno's in there. Tell me, what do you think in terms of Heung-min Son? Will that be a massive, massive blow for us? Of course, if he's out, it's a massive blow, and especially the situation we've got now in terms of Kane's future, we can't really afford to be without Son, can we?
No, Sonny's one of those players that will give everything he's got, and I think we all know that sometimes he is absolutely unplayable and he's incredible, and sometimes, like today, he is a bit off the pace and doesn't necessarily do everything. But I think not having him in a team is really obvious. And something that we don't really do well with, and especially with the Kane saga and what's ongoing. I think if we didn't have Kane up top, we don't at the moment. If we don't have Sonny up top, then that changes everything, right? Who else are we going to stick there? Because, you then start, is Dele going to go there? Is Bergwijn going to go there? Is Lucas going to go there? And you're like, it's all out of whack. We need Sonny. I don't know what will happen with Kane, obviously, and I know we're not going to go down that. Hopefully we'll know soon. But I don't think he'll play him as part of the starting 11 until his future is sorted, because either way, we need to do something. So I don't think it's as easy as, Son's out, let's just put Kane in. That's fine. Yeah, because what if Son's out and Kane goes? You don't know. I think it's difficult to know. But look, Son is always going to be a miss, and I hope he's fine. And he's one of those players that he would not be sitting on the sidelines if he didn't need to be. And I'm sure he was all right to play. It was maybe, hopefully, just precaution, I guess. Like, there was something that tweaked. We were winning. We had fresh legs on the bench. Why not give it to Kane? Fair play. But I think we've just got to see what happens. But fingers crossed he's not out, because we need him. And I think against Watford, hopefully he could have a bit of a field day, Sonny. And I think he needs that. Well, he needs some confidence as well. I think his that at times is, last week he was phenomenal and the goal was unreal. But you'd like to think games like Watford at home are games where you can show a little bit of flair, like City did this weekend, and we'll be able to score a few goals. And we need the Suns and the Kanes to be able to do that. Yeah,
I totally agree. Well, let's bring in the elephant in the room. I mean, Lee, Harry Kane, it's one of those subjects I keep saying in every show that really we know it can easily derail a podcast, which is why we try and bring it in 3/4 of the way through so it doesn't allow it to completely take the show off keel. He entered the game with 15 minutes to go amid the chants of plenty. I mean, I thought the chants were brilliant, to be fair, between the two fans. You had the Wolves fans saying Harry Kane, he wants to F off. Then they've got the Spurs fans replying that he's one of our own. The Wolves fans chanting back that there's one only greedy bastard. And it'll be a make in the morning. Then Spurs fans then retorted saying Harry Kane is worth more than Wolves. I thought some of the chanting going backwards and forwards was great. But ultimately, I think it has to be said, entering the game with 15 minutes to go, he had a chance within 7 minutes of the game, which was saved at the keeper's feet. He got a yellow card and added time for wasting time. Lee, overall, do you agree that Spurs were a better team with Kane on the pitch?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this guy is a Premier League goal scoring record waiting to happen. Last year he got the golden boot and the most assists, as we know. He is one of our own. I know it's very, very an emotive subject because the way he's gone about things, and you can go through that again and obviously get Harry and Charlie's views on it because we haven't had them on yet. But my views on the way things have been gone about. But the reality is, when you're talking about the footballer, the guy on the pitch playing for Tottenham Hotspur, who else would you want on the pitch playing for Tottenham Hotspur? I mean, this is Harry Kane, one of our own, one of the best strikers, the best number 9, in my opinion, in the world. He makes things happen, and we did look better when he come on the pitch, even for them 10, 15 minutes. I think that, we talked about Hugo Lloris there, galvanising the squad and being a leader. That's what Harry Kane does. He is that big figure. You've got to remember that, some people will still remember him as, that kind of young kid that come onto the scene at 21 or whatever, all them years ago. He's not nowhere near that anymore. He's an absolute superstar. He can win games on his own, and absolutely agree with Talia. You need to have your best players on the pitch in terms of Son and Kane. I believe it's just what from information that I've got and putting.
I think there's a question there for you on the screen from Chris Callahan. When does that Kane contract get announced?
Yeah, so Chris, I don't. Look, I'm not in the know in terms of the actual Kane camp. I don't know when it gets announced. My information is that there's been a 10 million contract on the table for him to sign to get an extra 10 million this year, which will double his wages so that he can actually stay at the football club for another year. Some reports in the mainstream media, a lot of better sources than me, that are saying that actually there's a longer-term contract on the table that it will come out and sign with a big release clause in there. And some people are still saying that Man City are going to come in. Let's just look at the quick facts that we do know. What we actually know is that he played today. He came on a coach. He played in a match where he didn't have to play. He didn't need to come even be on that coach. And if there was a move in the next 10 days imminent, would we have risked a £150 million player getting injured today for the last 15 minutes of Wolves? Do you think we should? So, Harry, Talia, over to you. What do you think?
I don't want to speak too much about it. I think none of us know what's happening. I think it's very clear. We were all really upset at the beginning when everything unfolded because we have all been huge advocates for Kane is the best striker in the world. Kane is a one club man. Kane wants to win trophies at Spurs. Kane loves Spurs, right? And that was, for me, that was everything. And as soon as, all of that broke and I'm not going to play anymore, it's like you feel like an idiot because you back Kane. You thought his love was real, blah, 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 right? Yeah. I think as fans, I think most of us were in the boat of we understand why Kane wants to leave. Because totally. Until this Spurs don't match my ambition, I will be here. Once they don't, I'm out. And we've all agreed the last 2 seasons, even maybe a couple of more, have not been ideal. And we have regressed, and we're in a Conference League and we're not in the Champions League. And for someone that's chasing records and wants to be one of the best players in the world, you've got to play in the best competitions. And I think we were all very big advocates of that and understood where he was coming from. I think the whole situation has been handled horrendously from Kane camp, from everything, the lie, the statement, all of that jazz. That is what we have problems with. I think most people would agree, and that is the problem. And I think now it's just a case of, well, what's going to happen? You know, this limbo situation is ridiculous. The media cannot wait to push him out of our club, but that's not new. That's been happening for how many years now?
And Charlie, just on that, just to interact with you, right? The media, you've got to remember this, and this is what you're saying about what we know, what we don't know. We only know what the media are putting out there,
Exactly.
in that sense. And that's why I keep bringing these snippets to the pod, Last Word On Spurs podcast, because that's what I'm part of, right? And I'm talking to the fans, and I'm a fan myself. I'm talking to the fans. Now, Sky put out a massive, big statement saying Kane hasn't turned up for training. So we all now know that Kane didn't turn up for training. And that's what we think happened. But we don't know. What we don't know is, did the football club already know that he wasn't coming to training? Well, what's come out subsequently is that he was at Joe Lewis's, in the Bahamas, and also in Florida. We wouldn't be with Joe Lewis or with the team in parts of their team if he wasn't turning up to training, would he? But that's where now what's coming out. So the reality of the situation is that something's happened. That obviously something's happened that we know about. And I suppose my question back to you quickly, Charlie, is: do you think that if you was Daniel Levy and you were selling him to Man City next week for 150 million, would you have played him today?
No, I don't. But look, I don't think any of us understand Levy. We've gone through this many times in general.
on the show as well. Yeah.
Big advocate for a Levy brand.
Yeah.
He's not an idiot. He's a smart man. He's very open about the fact he's our star man. He doesn't want him to go. He's not for sale. He won't sell for a rival. Kane's made it clear he's not going abroad. Why Levy would change his mind, I don't know. You know, it's very factually, Kane should stay at this club. He's got another 3 years, whatever, left on his contract. He's a Spurs player. And what you just said, would he be on the coach? He doesn't have to be. He does have to be. He's a Spurs contracted.
And he's contracted to Tottenham.
He played today.
But what I'm saying is, if he was being sold, that's what I mean. You're absolutely spot on.
Sure.
If he was being sold, like if he's being sold, he wouldn't be on the coach, would he? They would have made up some rubbish about he's broken his toe, or he's got he's got armpit issue or whatever. But yes, he absolutely does need to be on it. I'm keen to bring Harry in as well, but coming back to the media side of things, people are saying they haven't met the asking price. Well, you tell me what the asking price is, because Rick, you'll probably tell me 160. Tyler, you might go 150. Harry, you'll go maybe 145. There ain't no asking price because we're not selling him. It's not for sale. But it's the media that plaster over 160 and 400 grand a week. Oh, right. So hang on a minute. Then that must be the asking price. There's no asking price because we haven't asked for one, because we're not selling him.
No.
Does that make sense?
I know.
Yeah. I mean, we got to bring Harry on as well. Harry, as I said, this Kane debate, as you see there, we can sit here and discuss this till the cows come home. At the moment, we're still all in the dark as to what's going to happen. What's your take on it, Harry, for you? Do you think, just to kind of put this bluntly, to kind of end this subject so we can move on, will Harry Kane be a Tottenham Hotspur player by the end of this summer transfer window?
Yeah, I think he will, because I don't think City will pay the money that the Spurs are going to demand, as they're well within their right to. But probably the wrong thing to say on this channel. I'm not really a typical Spurs fan anymore, because when I work in professional football, and I've actually got my own. I've actually created my own agency now, where we look after players. Yeah. So I look at every situation very, very quite cold-hearted now in terms of football, not from a fan's point of view. And I have absolutely no issue with Kane wanting to leave. I wouldn't actually have an issue with him trying to force a move. My point is that in terms of him actually trying to get the move, him and his brother, I've got to be careful what I say because I am an agent, but they haven't exactly gone about it the best way in terms of actually trying to get themselves a move. So I don't have a problem with players trying to force it, but in terms of, because you've got to look out for your best of your career, I don't blame them. It's all well and good, Spurs, or Spurs fans saying loyalty and the club were there to back you, but only because he was performing. Football clubs don't show any loyalty to you either. If Spurs will show loyalty to Harry Kane because he's scoring 30 goals a season. They didn't show much loyalty to players who perhaps score 5 goals in 30 appearances.
That's
you know
fair,
what I mean?
fair.
So it works both ways. So I'm very cold-hearted in terms of that. I have no issue with him wanting to leave. I have no issue with him trying to force a move. My issue with that he's actually done it in him and his brother have done it in quite a number of stupid ways that make it very, very hard. I mean, if I'm Harry Kane's advisor, the last thing I'm doing at the prime of my career is signing a 6-year contract at a football club that isn't even guaranteed to get Champions League football and have no release clause. I mean, I don't think he will go because I think it will take 150 million pounds, and if I don't think City will pay that. I just don't think they will. I might be wrong. Maybe they're trying to play the long game. Maybe City have known all along they'll eventually pay that. Who knows? But if I had to put money on it, I would say that he is going to stay. If I had to put money on it, and I think that also. I want to
ask you how much, Harry.
How much is he worth? Or
how much money would you put on it? It's just it's just difficult to know.
Yeah, definitely not. Yeah. Definitely not the money that it would take to actually buy him in the first place. So
definitely not, mate. I bet not. But I think the problem with the Kane subject is, as you guys know, it can roll and roll and roll. And like I say, what I do want to pay some tribute today is to our defence, right? Because I mean, like I say, another clean sheet. Tanganga early on. I mean, what we'll say very quickly, we saw Nuno on Harry Kane say he can still improve. We're not putting a bar on it. He's getting better. I think he did well. He helped the team. He had a good chance. Harry is still in the process of improving his level of fitness, but he's one of the best players in the world. I mean, to me, just to finish up on Harry, to me, the way Nuno's speaking doesn't sound like he's a man that's going out the door. But listen, who knows? Football is a crazy phenomenon in general. Anything can happen, as we know in football. So we can't ever, like I say, sit here for a second and say he's going to do this, he's going to do that. It will be a case of waiting and seeing. But on our defence, Tanganga, earlier on a clash ahead, some tough tassels with Traore we're going to come on to very shortly. Picked up a yellow card, but did well throughout the game despite on that booking. Davinson Sanchez, he had some iffy moments, I think, to be said, especially in the first quarter of an hour mark with a sliding clearance that ended up hitting his knee and going behind him. Fortunately, Raul Jimenez was offside and his shot deflected wide. Eric Dyer, as we mentioned earlier in the show, gave away the ball inexplicably, to say Eric Dyer. Many times we said that in the past, Eric Dyer. He had a header saved on the line from a corner at the other end. Other than that, he did much of what was asked of him. Sergio Reguilon picked out Ali really well for the goal. On the whole, was decent, used his pace to make some interceptions. Guys, the defence in general, Lee, is it getting better? If I was to say to you now, that's our defence for the rest of the season, how would your heart feel?
I don't know. I think it started beating a bit faster when you said that.
It did.
Look, I'll be honest with you. I mean, look, they've done pretty well, to be fair, and credit where credit's due. I think the only problem is that I think we discussed this so many times over the last few seasons, and be interested to get Harry and Charlie's view on it, is that that there's an issue waiting to happen with one of them at some stage. Like, there is. Like with Romero, he ain't played. By all accounts, he wasn't brilliant the other night, but he's getting fitness and whatever. But he's Serie A Defender of the Year, so you're expecting him not to make them sorts of mistakes. Whereas actually, even tonight this afternoon with Dyer, he gave the ball away in a situation where he absolutely did not need to give the ball away, and that's the bit where we wasn't punished tonight, so it doesn't get highlighted as much. But yet he still did it. And that's the bit that you start to worry about. So, yeah, I would be concerned if we didn't have Romero. But we have. And we've spaffed 50 million on the fella. And he's brilliant by all accounts. And hopefully he slots in and becomes our Virgil van Dijk, as I said last week. So I am comfortable that we've signed a quality central defender. I think there was a lot of clamour at the beginning of the window to say we need at least 2, maybe even 3. Tomiyasu, and there was other players. I put my put the poster on the wall for Yannick Vestergaard. And this is Jason getting involved. He loves it. The reason why Jason's writing that because he knows that as he calls Oil Boy, Traore can't score or assist, so that's why we wasn't punished. We are going to come on to shortly. Jason, that way, fella. We're going to have a section on Adama Traore.
Yeah, it won't be as long as Jason probably likes the section to be.
No,
but,
exactly.
We'll cover it
as much as you can oil up. Look, I think our defence have done well, and I think that's been well drilled. Like I said right at the beginning of the show, if I'm being ultra critical, I would like to see them push up 15, 20 yards further up the pitch and defend for a higher line. I think we've got some decent pace. Look, Traore has got pace, there's no doubt, but we've already seen it today, which we'll come on to. One-on-one situations, the geezer still can't put it in the back of the net. So I wouldn't have been worried pushing up 15, 20 yards out the pitch. But look, let's see how the season progresses. There's a lot of games to play, isn't there? 2 clean sheets.
There is. I mean, Harry, let's come to you, because what I want to ask you, Harry, is from a coaching perspective, you know, with regards to Dyer and Sanchez, there'll be fans screaming out there saying, but they've reached that level now, that you're not going to get any more out of them than what you've seen. Can it happen that a new manager comes in and can take those particular players to another level? Do you generally believe that can happen, or do you think Spurs generally they are going to need to? You know, we've got Romero, of course. There's people screaming saying, but we need a partner for Romero. It's not just enough getting Romero in. We need a partner for him. What do you think? If this is the defence now at the end of the season, are you comfortable as a Tottenham fan taking the coaching hat off?
I mean, first of all, like, you know, interacting with a lot of fans drives me mental in the first place. You know, loads of them speak a load of balls, but, you know, is what it is in terms of like how you know, the agenda are driven and how reactionary so many are. But I think that listen, in football, it's very rarely as bad as it seems. It's very rarely as good as it seems. Now, in terms of what people say about Dyer and Sanchez, they're not as bad as people make out. They're not at all. They have their weaknesses. They certainly do. And if you're asking me, would I choose them as the centre-back partnership going forward for Tottenham? No, I wouldn't. But, you know, they do have their assets and they do have their strengths. I'm actually not completely convinced by Romero from what I've seen of him. I mean, hopefully I'm proven wrong. I think he's a bit too rash and on the edge kind of all the time, which is a bit of a worry, especially in the Premier League where the pace of the game is quicker and, you know, you can get caught out that way. So I'm not too worried about the defence, because I think that Spurs have a coach that will really set them up to be hard to beat in terms of how they do it, in terms of either the pressing or the protection or whatever it might be. I think the organisation will be good, you know. But I would say that, you know, the midfield is certainly more of a worry than defence at the moment. But I would probably feel more comfortable if they signed one more centre back personally.
And that's a starting centre back for your HU. That would be a starting centre back alongside.
Well, I guess so. The problem is, it's like the balance isn't quite there for me yet, because, you know, I really like Joe Rodon. Now, in a normal situation, I would like Joe Rodon to be given a chance and to start. But the problem is, I think if you put Joe Rodon and Romero together, that could potentially be quite tricky. You know, that's not a lot of experience, you know, in the Premier League. And I'm not sure stylistically they match too well. I guess Rodon is quite a good sweeper, so he can cover him behind for Romero. But yeah, I would probably look for another starting centre back. I love Tanganga. I think he could be a fantastic centre back, but maybe not yet. And I think that at the moment, I think, and I've actually thought this for a while, I think he's Spurs' best right back. I think he's really good there. And I think in time he might become a centre back. I think the defence situation is better than what people are probably saying or probably making out, but it's not. I mean, if you look at like sort of like the teams like Man United, I mean, a Maguire-Varane partnership, you know, Chelsea, Silva, Rudiger and Christensen maybe in a back three, that to me is that level above. And Liverpool, Van Dijk if he's fit, and Gomez or Matip or Konate, you know, that's a level above what Spurs currently have. But it depends on what Spurs are looking to do.
Yeah, totally agree. Talia, a question on the screen here from Mario Skitabos, who says, Tanganga has been a breath of fresh air, apart from getting the runaround from Adama today, who we should sign, by the way. He's going to be a great player for us. Just on Adama Traore, because we've had so many questions come in. I mean, if I tell you, Jason, bless him, he was on this show. Jason, we're having a field day. So we've had the likes of, we've had Dakat D. Cavalier, we've had Ross Nolan, I Am Black Duck, Cody, North Flag of United States at CMK COYS, all asking the question with regards to Adama Traore. What do you think for you? You know, would he be exciting? Would he be an exciting signing? Would he frustrate the life out of you? Thoughts?
I'm having deja vu because I'm pretty sure I came on the pod like when we played Wolves last year and we had this exact conversation and was debating it then, and we're still doing it now. I think we did.
A year later, what's changed?
Literally nothing. Look, I think today shows what he is. He is the biggest lump going, who is absolutely rapid. And if he's running to you, you're scared. He is an asset to that degree. However, he has zero end product, zero. He doesn't assist. He doesn't score. In your 11, in that role, you want someone that will assist and score. And I get, again, there's no perfect player business. There's no perfect players. And I do think, of course, he has strengths that we lack, that he clearly puts to the test when he plays. But I'm pretty convinced he uses our game as his audition tape that's going on YouTube for the compilation, because he's unreal against us every time. And then he's so bad all season. He does nothing. I don't think today shows what he is like. He's not an all-rounder. He is just a big individual that you think, I don't want him near me. But
that's a polite way of saying, tell you, you're not getting him on the back of your shirt anytime soon if he does join the club.
No, I wouldn't. If he was signed, I'd be like, right, okay then, next.
He does happen now, doesn't you? About 10:30, once this show wraps up, he's going to be breaking it, and we're in talks with him. Lee, let's come around to you. Adama Traore, very quickly. Is he a player that interests you, Lee?
No, 40 million or 45 million, not for me at all. Eric Lamela, who've just let go after what it was 7 seasons or nearly 8 seasons at Tottenham Hotspur. He's got a better record than me in terms of goals and assists. And people will have a go at me for saying, "Oh, it's not just about goals and assists because he can wreak havoc." I totally get that, but he always seems, as Charlie said, to wreak havoc with the Spurs defence, and that's it. Like it's only us.
Every time.
Yeah, just double up on the fellow, or whatever it is. He's made 142 appearances in the Premier League, and he scored 7 goals and assisted 14 times in 142 appearances. Now, if you're looking for, we've got a lot of people guest interacting with the show tonight, talking about creative midfielder and haven't replaced Eriksen. Adama Traore, with all due respect, is not the answer. You would rather have Lucas or Bergwijn, based on even today, in the side over Adama Traore all day long. Dele Alli all day long. The records that we've just read out before. I'd go as far as to say you may as well cut Lamela if you're going to.
I was going to say that.
That's going to cause my God.
At least Lamela got it and wanted to fight. In the North London derby and all that sort of stuff. I just think that. Look, I'm sure he might become a really good player somewhere because he's only 25. To be fair to him, I know he's built massive. He's a huge guy.
He's a unit. He's a unit.
Yeah, and he is rapid, right? He could be a sprinter, but at the end of the day, just because you're fast doesn't necessarily mean you've got an end product. And for me, unfortunately, that is what Traore is. He's just really quick.
Yeah, agree. We're going to come on to finish up with some of the players. I mean, we mentioned Højbjerg earlier. Really battled away in the middle of the midfield. Took a yellow card for the team very late on there for that foul on Silva. Also, nutmegged a defender at the other end, had a shot deflected over. Lucas Moura had a good ball over the top of Bergwijn for a Spurs chance before the break. However, that was a very quiet day really for the Brazilian. Moura, so it's funny with Moura, he's a player that's still amongst Spurs fans. One of the most divisive players that I can imagine. Some people absolutely love him, some people not too keen. Steven Bergwijn, I had a couple of questions on Bergwijn, which is interesting because he had a big opportunity to square the ball for Ali in the box after a good run, but he put it just behind his teammate. It was flagged offside anyway, but he's had a low cunning effort that was saved by the keeper on the 64th minute. Produced a wonderful, I know it's been trending on Twitter, this wonderful bit of skill that we saw down the left-hand flank to get up on the pitch and then set up Kane the first 10. Did cover so much ground, was attacking one moment and defending the next moment, just needs that end product. And we'll go to a question here from Jonathan McDonald, and we'll take this one over to you, Harry. This, he says, why has Bergwijn not had a chance to prove himself like now? He's improving with every game. We still need to create it in the middle. Another Modric or Eriksen or Dembele. He's not comparing him to him, but he's just saying he feels that Bergwijn should be getting more minutes. Do you agree? Because I think you worked with Stevie, didn't you? You worked with him, I want to say, a couple of years ago now. Harry, is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I can't claim to have coached him. My company and that had a relationship with his trainer, and I was part of that session. I would have coached him by now, but thanks COVID, that stopped that happening. So there you go. Never mind. I'm sure it will come. But I mean, this isn't me being biased because I've met the man and hopefully do work with him in the future. I think he's a very, very good footballer. Steven Bergwijn's. The vast majority of things Steven Bergwijn does, he does very, very well. I think he's, in terms of the, other than Harry Kane, other than Harry Kane. He's the best forward in the squad at being able to retain the ball, knows when to release the ball. He can attack in a variety of ways, very tactically intelligent, technically very apt, good athleticism, very disciplined and hard worker. But what he just, at the moment, that last piece that's missing, which is the biggest piece for forward players, is he just doesn't have that conviction himself in the final third. He looks like he doubts himself at the moment because it was so long. Go on.
Just to interrupt with you, do you think that he did have that, and then it was like coached out of him being defensive under Jose? Sorry, it's my dog, by the way, everybody. This is Marley just popping in. Sorry about that. Yeah, do you think? I mean, because obviously we all know that confidence is a massive thing, isn't it? In all things, in life, in sport, and whatever. But I just wondered whether or not, when he burst onto the scene, didn't he, Harry? Like, bang, scored that goal against Man City on his debut, an unbelievable finish, and you just haven't seen. And he scored a brilliant goal against Manchester United, didn't he, on the take as well? What's your take on that?
I was speaking about him earlier to a friend, and I actually compare it a little bit to Roberto Soldado in the sense of, and actually Timo Werner's current situation, because let's use Soldado as an example. He didn't do well at Tottenham, obviously, but if people remember it, his all-round game was very, very good, I thought, in terms of how he could play and things like that. But what Soldado's issue was, again, going back in memory, Villas-Boas was obviously the manager that signed him. Now, I don't know if people remember, but the first few months of the season, Spurs didn't create one clear chance for Soldado. Now, Soldado was a player that's a really instinctive finisher. No time to think, just gets it done. But when you go so long without scoring, whether it's your fault or not, now you start to get in your own head. Now you start to question yourself. Now you start to overthink things. That's clear with Steven Bergwijn at the moment. He's an outstandingly technical footballer, and yet last week's first touch for his chance gave him the complete wrong angle because he's in his own head at the moment, and people have got to appreciate that footballers are human beings as well. Now they've got an every single Premier League footballer, every single professional footballer has an outstanding mindset to get to the level they do. But you are human. They will feel certain pressure, and players deal with pressure in certain ways. So what I think Bergwijn needs, he needs to just, I don't think it's just one goal that will fix it, but I think that he has to, if I was coaching him, I would just sort of work on certain types of finishes again and again and again. And I would just really like him to be decisive when that moment comes, that shot, that final pass, whatever it might be. Don't think, don't second guess yourself, don't doubt, because you've got the quality overall and it will come. Just persevere, it will come. Get outside your own head, don't overthink, and it will come. At the moment, I just think his issue is because he went so long without scoring. Then he gets all that abuse. He's in his own head right now. So almost like you can see certain players, they want to avoid having the chance themselves. I think it was in the pre-season friendly when Colchester or whatever, and he set up Sonny for the finish. It was probably actually easier for Bergwijn to finish himself rather than squaring. So you can have that in situation. I'm not saying that is the case with Bergwijn. He might want chance. Might want chance after chance to give himself the opportunity. But what I'm saying is that it wouldn't surprise me if at the moment he's just doubting himself in front of goal, because his all-round game is fantastic. And I still believe in him. And I do hope that he has that run of contributes to goals in maybe, 3 out of 6 or so games, gets a bit of rhythm going. And then I think you'll see that talent that we know is there.
Yeah, I think a question the comment on screen there says that Bergwijn scores, it will spark a new player. Will be like London buses, wait ages, and then they will come together. We most hope so. Guys, we are going to go for our listeners that are on audio. We're going to go for our final break of the show. Taking you into this break, we've got the wonderful Alex Goncalves, who's giving us his thoughts ahead of Tottenham Hotspur's return leg against Paços de Ferreira to come. Will Spurs turn that game on its head? For those that are watching on YouTube, thank you ever so much. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. We'll be getting into that right now. Now, guys, I'm not going to ask you all to claim to be experts in terms of the team that we faced last Thursday, but we've got to try. Some will feel to turn this game around. Some are not actually that fussed if we do go out. Talia, we'll start with you, because Nuno Espirito Santo, after the game on Thursday, said that the feel-good factor had disappeared. We're hoping that's obviously come back to some degree today on the back of that win. I mean, let's be honest about it. We were very, very poor in Portugal. I mean, again, the 11 we selected out there is probably a mixture of players out of fringe, not really players that we're going to be taking forward in terms of the group. But we saw, obviously, that Lucas Silva ran in behind Christian Romero to latch on early to that free ball and put the home side a goal up, which they held on to. Nuno, after the game, said that nobody likes to lose. Nobody likes to play not a good game. The players have to bounce back. But Spurs not managing a single shot on target, Talia. Do you think we're going to probably approach this second leg a bit differently, and you would imagine we'll see a bit more of a stronger lineup? What do you reckon?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we need to debate last week's game really at all. I'm sure you've already done that, but I think
definitely we'll move that one on.
Exactly. I think he'd be an idiot not to play a stronger team. I think we already got bantered enough for losing to some Portuguese God knows who. So if we sit at home and play that same starting 11, I think we are, in for a bit of a laugh. But we should be able to smash them 3-4-0 at home. And if we don't, it's embarrassing. I don't think it's something that we need to debate. Whoever's out there, we should win it. We're at home. They're terrible.
Do you agree with Jason's comment there, Jason, that he's saying Bergwijn came more up front? Would you play those players for this time? I don't think we need that. We shouldn't need that. If we need that, I don't know what they are the equivalent of, but we should not be needing those players to beat them. We shouldn't. I think Thursday was really poor all round, and I would expect a better game. I think, it'll be a different lineup because there will be players available on the bench if and when and if we need it, but hopefully we don't need it. I think it will be a midway group. I think half of those players will start, but then we might see like a Lo Celso, Winks already, but like a few of those that were on the bench today will definitely start. I think they started last week, actually. I think I'm getting confused now. Maybe when Lucas went off a bit earlier today, maybe he'll play because he's got bundles of energy. He didn't play a full match today. He was a bit off the pace, so he'll start. Like, we'll just see a bit of a mishmash, I think, and it will be the case of don't want to use any proper senior players. We shouldn't need to. If we need to, they'll be on the bench. It's a home tie. It's no stress. They can come on. But ultimately, we should be able to do it with what we've got. Yeah, and Lee, let's come around to you there. Question on the screen there from, it's more of a statement. Lee Reed says, I won't be disappointed at all, but actually delighted if we go out of this Mickey Mouse competition on Thursday. Do you see it as that? I mean, for me, I see it as a great learning development tool for a lot of these players that that aren't going to get regular game time in terms of the Premier League. And we're a club that, let's be honest about it, we haven't won a trophy for such a long time. I just feel that even with this, whatever you want to call it, the third tier of European football, I still think it's an opportunity to win a trophy. It's an opportunity to give players game time. I would be disappointed if we went out of this competition. Would you?
I think there's a lot of people that want their cake and eat it, to be honest. And I think that, if it's a development opportunity to use the development squad and bring some of the youngsters in and give them the game time that you need, or fringe players, then you can't expect to go and smash a team 8-0 and win the competition at a canter and not turn up. You can't do that. It doesn't work like that. But if you play your first team because you want to win the competition, then expect to lose today, right, against Wolves, because you won't have the ability or the squad depth to go and do the two things. So, there was a lot of youngsters on show. There was a lot of players that hadn't played or haven't even given minutes in midweek. And it was almost like, it was a pre-season game for a lot of them players, is the point I'm making. So if you enter the competition and you want to go after that competition, then you've got to be prepared to get the balance right between development of the squad and giving them game time, and also having first team players in there. And I think, if you're going to be critical of Nuno, maybe that's what he got wrong. We don't know what the club's plan is to actually go, right, are we going to go after this competition or not? But you asked me the question, am I bothered about staying in it or not? No, because I'm not worried about it, because I don't think that we should be trying to fight on 4 different situations at the level that we're at. We're at the beginning of a project again, and we need to rebuild, and it's a painful rebuild, and we need to get ourselves back into a situation where we want Champions League football. Now, by winning this trophy, all that happened is that everybody would just banter us for winning it because it's the third-rate competition, and it doesn't even get you into the Champions League. So what benefit is there other than to the development squad, which I totally understand and I agree with you? But then you can't go and play the first team on Thursday if it's a competition to develop the squad, because it's counterproductive. So I think you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. But for me, what I would do, again, at home with our home fans in our amazing stadium, is I would say to the players that went out there the other night, you go again and put the result right and get the result right, because I don't think that's a huge amount of pressure on them to do that. And I think they've got the capability to do it. And again, let's have this right as well. This isn't a third-tier Portuguese team. This is a team that came 5th in their division last season.
Yeah,
right?
They're fairly established as well in the Premier League. They've been there, I think, last 20 seasons they've been top 8. They're not a bad side.
Exactly. And this whole competition itself, one of the comments was Mickey Mouse competition. The whole competition itself, they've got some tough teams in this competition.
Well, Roma in it to win it. You imagine Roma in it to win it.
Well, exactly. People just saying, "Oh yeah, Tottenham will get to the final and will win." Well, no, it doesn't work like that. I think we've all know that that's not the case. So I think having a plan, setting yourself out, and going after the season. If the club have turned around and said, "Right, this is our best avenue for a trophy," then you go after this as your trophy. But I don't think the club has said that, and I wouldn't be saying that either. What I'd be doing is saying, concentrate on the Premier League to get back into the top four. That's not a trophy. I understand that, but that's where we need to be. And that's the whole Kane situation. If we got top four last season, Kane's not having a conversation with Genev. It's not happening because we're in the Champions League and he loves the football club. So that's why it is so important at the stage that we're at. It's not about, it doesn't matter what competition we're in, Ben Bailey, we've got to be in it to win it. If we haven't got the squad to fight on all four, then I don't, personally, I think that we're at a situation transition where we need to choose what we're going to go after. And for me, personally, that would be domestic trophies.
Okay, fine. Guys, that's how we're going to do it. We've got just very, very quick fire listener questions to fit in and predictions. Before we do those quick fire things, we'll take no more than 5. Let's quickly go back round to Harry for a second. Harry, the question on the screen here we see is from, more of a statement again from Ben Bailey there, who says, it doesn't matter what competition we're in, we should be in it to win it. And at Tottenham, we can't pick and choose. We can win it and we should try to win it. Is that your opinion? Do you share that? Or again, with Lee, are you not too fast if we was to go out?
I mean, first of all, I can already tell you what's happening now with the Conference League. Spurs are getting to the final where they're going to face Jose Mourinho's Roma, and Jose Mourinho will win because that's just the way football and Jose Mourinho works. It would be the most. I love him for it. It would be the most Jose Mourinho thing ever to do that to Tottenham. It would be the most Jose. But there you go. Anyway, so that's what's happening, whether people like it or not. Listen, I think that people have to appreciate how difficult it is to manage squads throughout a season. It is physically impossible to be at 100% capacity for an entire season, even if you just play in the Premier League, let alone if you then have FA Cup, League Cup, whatever it's called, like the Coca-Cola Cup now, where it's called, and the Conference League. Carabao. I've always called it the Carling Cup. I refuse to call it the Carabao Cup. It's not the Carabao Cup.
Last time we won it under the Carling Cup.
Yeah, there you go. League Cup or Carling Cup. Nothing else. Until one of these companies start paying me money, then I'll call it them, whatever they want. But no. So it's a situation where, I mean, listen, they're going to win on Thursday. They are going to go through. They will get to the group stages and they will qualify purely because the quality of the squad will just see them through. I completely agree with what Lee said in terms of how it's a very hard balancing act. It's not a case that you specifically try to throw the competition, but by the same token, you can't play Harry Kane, for example, away in, I don't know, Slovakia on the Thursday and then ask him to start on the Sunday against an Arsenal or a Leicester. No. It can't happen.
Not for this competition when there's no real reward for...
You can't because... It's so difficult because, and people need to appreciate that these people aren't robots. And when people say, oh, back in my day, they used to play every game, there was no such thing as hamstring injuries. Football was completely different back then. The pace of the game nowadays, the intensity and the competition, how much players run and do, they do more than what their body's supposed to be able to do. So it's not a case of throwing the competition. It's a case of managing your squad to be able to cope. So let's say that these players let's say that Spurs had some special potion and they were robots and that every player was 100% all the time. Harry Kane would play every minute of every game. Of course he would, because then you're more likely to win the games. Nuno, of course, would love to win the Conference League, but they're not going to do that if it jeopardises the Premier League. So it's not about throwing a competition. It's about prioritising and managing your squad to make sure that you are at your premium when it matters most or in whatever competition that might be in. So they're not going to throw it. But, don't expect to see Harry Kane play a minute of Conference League football unless there's a disaster or it's used as a thing to get him up to sharpness or fitness. And that's just the way it's going to be. And that's the way it should be honest, because you shouldn't have to have Harry Kane to beat, to win on Thursday. You shouldn't have to have him to win on Thursday. Yeah. So, that's the way it will be. And it's not throwing the competition, but it's managing your squad.
Yeah, spot on. Right, guys, let's quickly go for predictions. We can just quickly fit in some quick fire listener questions that are going to take us a couple of minutes. Let's go first to, let's stick with you, Harry. Prediction for this one? We really took this up now.
I mean, this Thursday, let's go simple 4-0. Like, comfortable,
4-0,
get it done. Yeah,
confident we'll get it done. Okay, perfect. Let's go around to Lee. Lee, what are you going for?
2-0 Tottenham.
2-0 Tottenham, enough to get us through.
I think Scarlett will start, and I think Scarlett will score.
Okay, well enough to get over the line.
Come on,
will it be a nervy 2-0, or will it be a quite convincing 2-0, Lee?
It's always nervy, Rick. Tottenham Hotspur.
What a stupid question that was. What an absolutely stupid question that was. Talia, what are you going for?
I'll go in the middle, I'll go 3.
3.
3-0, but I think there could be a 1 in there. I think there could be a 1 in there.
Yeah, depending who we go with defensively wise. Right, guys, we're going to finish up with some listener questions. There's so many, guys. Thank you so much for all these listener questions. Let's start with you, Harry, on this one. This is from Dave at Spurs Dave C, who says, do you think Ndombele was watching that performance from Dele today? Because that's the job he should be doing as well. Harry, very quickly, minute or two, Ndombele, what's going on with him? Will he get that move that he so much wants this window, or will it be potentially maybe a loan that gets him out the door quickly?
I mean, anybody who knows me knows I love Ndombele. I want him to stay. I think he's perfect for what Spurs need. I love how he plays football, but sometimes the shoe just doesn't fit. And if it's a situation where he wants to go and he's adamant and whatever it might be, behind the scenes stuff I don't know, then that's a different story. I want him to stay. I think he'd be amazing for us and what we need. But listen, who knows there? I think he stays because the money we're required to get him out of the club is far too much from what a club will be willing to pay. So the only way that happens is if there's some kind of player swap, part exchange. Those are the hardest deals to do in football. So I think he stays.
Ronaldo, Juventus, Ronaldo.
Yeah, that was close. I mean, that was close, isn't it? It's funny. I'm sure the law of the Conference League. He can't wait to come down here and play these sides. My God, I bet he can't wait to come and play here. That was for Joel Mohammed.
Lewandowski wants a new challenge. He's never played in the ESL that one before.
Ronaldo caught was for Joel Mohammed. Bless her. I'm thinking earlier about Ronaldo. I said, well, listen, I'm sure he absolutely is desperately craving Tottenham Hotspur on a Thursday night in the Europa League. Tony, let's come around to you for the next question. You answered this earlier. Chris at COYS_Chris says, after that performance, do you think we need a playmaking midfielder? They're referring to obviously the performance against Wolves.
Yeah.
Do we need one before the deadline?
Yeah, we do. We've needed one for a while. It's always yes. Simple, yes.
Fine, okay. And we'll close the show then with Lee McQueen. Lee, this is from Inner Strict Narratives. Do you think Paratici can get us another striker before the deadline? I'm not convinced Scarlett is ready just yet, and we need someone experienced who can play with or alongside, with Harry Kane, or as a direct alternative to Harry Kane.
Yeah, I think he will. I think there will be a couple more people come through the door. I've said earlier my thought process on Harry Kane. I think he's going to stay. So I think it would be somebody to come and play alongside him. I still can't get over the fact that we didn't go in for Danny Ings. I mean, it's just absolutely mind-blowing me. And also as well, we were talking about centre-backs earlier, left-footed, genuine left-footed centre-back, Premier League experience, Danish centre-half, Yannick Vestergaard, and 15 million. You could have two of them players for 40 million quid. Unbelievable, Tottenham. What are you doing, scouts? What are you doing? But I do think they will come in, and I think that we've been heavily linked as well with, I'm going to not hit his name very well, so forgive me, but Awar.
Hossam Awar? Is it Hossam Awar? Is it Awar? I feel him Awar, so we'll go Awar.
I mean, I think he'd be a fantastic addition, and correct me if I'm wrong, Harry, that he played alongside Tungun Dembele as well beforehand, so them two linking up again. I think football and team sport is all about partnerships all over the pitch, whether or not it's cricket, whether it's football, whether it's rugby, it's all about partnerships. So actually having people linking up, like Brian Hill's in there now, with Reggie, when they get to play with each other, and maybe they're doing the training and coaching together beforehand. So I think that Paratici will get a couple more signings over the lines. But look, just remember, and I leave everybody with this: is it's not just about the signings; it's about what they do on the pitch. Obviously, you look at Lo Celso, 67 minutes. You look at Ndombele, 65, 66 minutes. Harry said himself, he's an absolute baller. We just hasn't seen it in a Tottenham shirt. So we might go and spend, 70 million euros or 90 million euros on all these major strikers that have come alongside Harry. Look at Vincent Janssen, right? Soldado we've mentioned, Moussa Sissoko 30 minutes. These players not necessarily going to do the business. So yes, I think we'll get a couple of signings over the line, but you know, what we're building here is a togetherness, and you've got to have trust in your squad. And if we've already got it, you might argue that we don't need any more.
Yeah, fair play. Listen, I've got to say a massive thanks, guys. You've seen the comments all night, right? The love has been out there for Harry and Talia throughout this show.
Oh, honestly, massive love.
Been incredible. I must say, massive thank you. The wonderful Harry Brooks back on the Last Word On Spurs. Harry, where can we find your content? Tell us where we can find the wonderful work you do.
I always forget, so I made sure to write it this time. So it's at HB. Yeah, there you go. At HB_head coach. So I wouldn't forget. So that's my Twitter, and then the Instagram I think is Royals_around_world. So you can see some of the players that I work with.
Amazing.
So yeah.
Brilliant. Listen, Harry, we look forward to having you back on the show throughout the season. It's been brilliant having you back. So thank you ever so much for coming
back. Thank you, guys. No, I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Oh, it's been brilliant having you. The wonderful Talia Corran back. Listen, we've missed those big opinions. We've missed that, that real desire, grit to tear into these players. Unfortunately, Talia, we don't have to tear into them much at the moment, but I'm sure, lo and behold, throughout the season, you'll be back on tearing them into them one time or another.
Exactly. When we inevitably make some form of a mistake, I'll be in the wings, ready
to
pounce.
Thursday's coming, Talia. Don't worry about that.
Yeah.
Well, you know how to find me. I'm on standby.
Bless you, honestly. Been great having you back on. Absolutely superb. Talia, where can our listeners, where can our audience find your opinions?
I tweet some angry things. I tweet some nice things. Talia Corran _. Come follow me. And other than that, I don't do anything else related to football. So, you can follow me whenever you want, but you won't get much.
The wonderful Talia Corran. Talia, thank you ever so much. And also, got to say, listen, the guy who's taking charge of this train once again, back on the. I'll say, we're putting coal in the train. Yeah, we're putting coal in the train already. Are we putting coal?
I think it's on electric now. I think it's electricity. We've upgraded. We're getting them sparks flying all over the place, and it was a dogged performance today. But let's be brutally honest about it all. We've got the 3 points. Yeah. It's 6 points out of a possible 6. We are top 4 as it stands at the moment. And by the international break, with the fixtures that are coming up with the others, we should be top of the league. So here we go. Top of the league by the international break. Come on, you Spurs.
Cheers to that.
After that, I can say much more. Guys, most importantly, keep safe, keep well. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't done already to the Last Word On Spurs on YouTube. And as always, go on, you Spurs.